Here we are in the feature match area of Grand Prix Turin 2017. It's Henry Channing against Francesco Ugoni. Both players at 5-0. I'm really curious what archetypes they're playing, but I've seen both of them around before. As you can see the yellow Axiom shirt, which is the pseudo pro team from England.
Nice.
Bunch of decent players wearing it always. So it's a sign of a player that has potential, at least on the GP scene. So, and we're gonna see zombies on the right, a Dread Wanderer and Crypt Breaker and Shelter's Thicket. I'm immediately thinking Temur Energy or some sort of ramp deck, but this looks like Temur Energy.
Probably. I see a Lungtusk up there, so almost surely. Decent starts for both players. They both have 2 mana worth of creatures on the battlefield. They have some lands, they have early plays, so looks like we're in for a reasonable game. But
Dark Salvation, boom.
With that, I surely have to give the early edge to Francesco.
Yeah.
It's a 2-for-1 removal spell on turn 3. That's always good. You can now activate Crypt Breaker to draw cards, and because Hugoni was also on the play, he's definitely ahead.
And I really like Dark Salvation as a card, and in these decks it's just so good that you get to make a card, you get to kill something, develop your board, and it can be in late game, it can do some nasty stuff. And here you see, speaking of nasty stuff, Crypt Breaker drawing cards right off the bat.
Yeah, it is one of the better cards in the zombie deck. A good reason to play the tribe in the first place. Now, Eatersphere Harvester is a card that I don't think is a typical main deck inclusion in Temur Energy, though I've also seen it in certain lists.
Yeah, it's been very popular when you think that mono red is going to be very present. I think Eatersphere Harvester was popular, quite popular at the time, especially after the Pro Tour. Yeah,
and it's also quite good against zombies, because zombies does not have any defense against flyers. The removal spells of zombies, Fatal Push, Grasp of Darkness, even Dark Salvation don't line up well against it. So it's a good card in a matchup, but no pilots yet.
But Francesco Ugoni developing his board there slowly. He actually went and played a Diregraph Colossus, drew after attacking with a Dread Wanderer, and was lucky enough to draw a second Dread Wanderer with that card draw. So he also got to have an extra zombie token, and his board is just looking so big, and it's something that Temur Energy, I don't think it can deal with once the zombie deck gets rolling.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough for sure, because Henry does not seem to have any removal spells to break up the synergies, just some creatures, but as long as Hugoni keeps drawing cards, eventually he'll find, let's say, Liliana's Mastery or Lord of the Accursed, so that he can beef up his entire team, and he already has a lot of power. If there's a mass boost effect.
He does have one. Yeah, he has a Lord of the Curse in his hand, so I think this is going to be lights out very fast. There's the Lord. Gets another zombie as well for his troubles.
And this is gonna be a lot of damage. Yeah, I think this is the point where you might as well say, I've drawn enough cards with Crypt Breaker. Right now, my zombies are so big, I'd rather just be attacking with them.
Yeah. And Francesco even has a Relentless Dead in his hand that he could follow up that, so for further make his board that much bigger. He's still probably. He's looking like he's gonna keep it slow. At this point, just attack. Okay, with everything. No, he's not gonna attack with the Crypt Breaker because he has another. He has the Relentless Dead that he wants to.
Well, the Crypt Breaker is also 2/2, so that would be blocked by the Virtuoso.
Fair. Yeah, it's just. Yeah, but what I meant to say, he wants to just draw another card after playing the Relentless Dead. I think. Yeah.
Because you might as well have additional value.
Yeah, why not, right?
Yeah.
An extra zombie, and I think Henry Channing is gonna scoop him up. And this is the sort of draw that is really tough for Temur Energy. If you don't have that early Magma Spray, Harness Lightning Braid, would you say that is the case? Like this is how the matchup can play out a lot of the time.
When the zombies deck is on the play, and you don't have an answer to break up an early Crypt Breaker, it is really tough. You can sometimes raise. With a big Lungtusk Cup followed by a reasonable curve of creatures. But Francesco also had removal to deal with that. And then you don't really stand a chance. Things are going to change after sideboard though.
Speaking of which, we just got our deck lists. There you have it. So I'm going to look at what the Zombies player seem to have crushed this. So I'm just wondering what he's going to bring in. He has some Transgress the Mind, some Doomfalls, Never to Return, Aether Sphere Harvester, Kalita, Sky Sovereign, Fatal Push, Grasp of Darkness, Lost Legacy. Mostly one-offs there. What do you? Is there anything particularly like in Francesco's sideboard here?
Let's see. Well, Sky Sovereign could be fine in the matchup. I wouldn't. I don't think I would really bother with too many changes. What Francesco also has to keep in mind is what Henry will do after board, and then adjust based on that. So what Henry has in his sideboard is well, let's say some typical Radiant Flames. So some sweepers, along with a couple additional removal spells. For example, Magma Spray, that's pretty good in a matchup, along with a Sky Sovereign that he can put in. If you expect opponents to add Radiant Flames, and some other Teamwear decks also have Chandra, Flamecaller as additional sweepers, you want to be somewhat resilient against that. And, well, Sky Sovereign helps against that because, well, it's a vehicle. Could also add a copy of Kalitas, which works. He also has an Aethersphere Harvester. Cards that maybe in game 1 wouldn't be all that impressive, but better against the game 2 answers that he might expect from Henry. I guess you could put in Transgress the Mind, but I'm not so keen on that because I think you will have to affect the board relatively early. Can't just durdle around too much with discard spells, especially when Henry is going to be on the play and will likely present a configuration that's still relatively aggressive.
Yeah, that's fair. But it's always hard, as we talked about earlier today. It's very difficult to sideboard correctly when you don't always know what your opponent is up to, what he can bring in, what he won't have, and so sometimes you have to hedge your bets and prepare for both. But I agree with you. While it does make sense to have Transgress when you're expecting Radiant Flames, maybe, but it's still. I think I would rather focus Francesco's deck after sideboard, just like doing the things that it does correctly and better, and have some mid-range cards that can battle the sweepers, like Kalitas, even the Sky Sovereign is something I like, even though it can be a problem against sweeper to get it to crew reliably.
Sure, but still a powerful card.
Yeah, for sure.
Some other interesting card choices to point out in the deck list of the players are that Henry, he's on a version with black, so he has 2 copies of the Scarab God. That's been a pretty popular choice throughout the weekend for people trying to get an edge, for instance, in the mirror match or against God Pharaoh's Gift. The Scarab God does help with that, and you have to put a swamp into your deck to support it, but it can definitely be a powerful card. Also along with Dispossess in the sideboard against God Pharaoh's Gift. Francesco, in the meantime, he has 2 copies of Emmet Eternal in his main deck. That's a nice zombie, which hasn't seen a whole lot of play, I think. It hasn't seen a big support from the zombie players, but it's going to be interesting to see if Francesco draws it and how it might perform, because, 5/5 can definitely be pretty big, and if you can combine it with a couple removal spells, it could easily steal the game. It might even be the type of card that's better after board, when opponents have more removal spells and more ways to break up your synergy, because it's a card that can essentially stand on its own.
Exactly.
More so than something like Lord of the Accursed, which needs help to go with it.
Yeah, and it makes total sense with the Emmet Eternal. Especially, it's not just, you said removal. I would just be more direct in saying burn spells. Because burning down a 5/5 or a 4/4 is that much more difficult.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that like Emmet Eternal seems quite good after sideboarding. Yeah, we're also have some slides prepared as we're entering the final phases of the pre-game there. So we have on top of stands some Czech players, Lucas Blahan and Martin Uza, both at 5-0. Remember, they did have 3 buys, as did Javier Dominguez. Some other players that I recognize, Alessandro Lippi, maybe Christian Hauk, but it's still fairly early in the tournament. None of these players have a locked up day 2 just yet. So let's see the other slide. How many 15-pointers do we have in total? Okay.
But it is good to see the 2 world's competitors, Martin Juza and Javier Dominguez at 5-0. At least it will bode well for them in a month or so. Yeah,
another Czech player, even though it says IT next to him on 23rd place, Andrej Strasky, who was quite worried about his deck selection for this tournament, but it's working well for him. And Bart van Eten is someone you might know.
Oh yeah, one of the better Dutch players at the moment.
Yeah, also Andrej Rutar, Slovenian old school player, and a host of others. Let's see the last slide real quickly. If there's anyone we recognize, Daniele Canavesi, that's from way back. And
I like Vincenzo from Italy. Could just be anyone.
Could be anyone. All right. Let's go back to the match, because I think the players are really close. Okay, I think we were mulliganing a little bit here. As you see, lots and lots of players at 5-0. Still long way to go.
Yeah, we're early in the tournament, but I do know that many of these players are playing different decks. For instance, on the second slide we saw Andrej Strasky. I believe he was planning to play blue-white approach. We had Bart van Etten. I think he was on Ramana Bread. So far it's an indication that you can be successful in the standard tournament with a variety of decks, as long as you know how to pilot it, how to sideboard, you have a good version, and you just play some tight and good Magic.
All right, so it looks like Francesco is the one who was mulliganing. He's up a game, and he's gonna keep on top after that mulligan. And looks like Henry does have the ever important Magma Spray in the early turns. He just if that was a Crypt Breaker, I'm pretty sure he would have killed it right away. It's just a Dread Wanderer, so he's developing his board with the Long Tusk Cup first here.
Yeah, reasonable starts for both players. No energy to go for the Long Tusk Cup yet. So, unless there is, say, a Roller Virtuoso or a Rogue Refiner on the next turn, it doesn't have a favorable attack yet. Then again, Francesco may also have to worry about not letting that Long Tusk Cup connect. So even though you might be thinking, well, I can attack with the Dread Wanderer now, that's fine, you would probably want to keep it behind.
I think
as a blocker.
Yeah, Francesco has double Crypt Breaker here, and this makes it very interesting that Henry did not choose to elect to play the Magma Spray on a Dread Wanderer, but now in a way he's kind of punished that Francesco will get an activation from the double Crypt Breaker.
Yep. But also good sequencing on Francesco's side then, because indeed in the face of a Magma Spray this worked out the best way possible.
Yeah, and he's still the now Dread Wanderer is going to get exiled with the Magma Spray, and Henry still probably fairly happy with the exchange. Gets to attack for 2 with the Long Tusk Cup, gets 2 energy, and now gets to play another Long Tusk Cup. So he's making his army that much bigger. If he has a good energy generator for the following turn, he can make his creatures really, really good. All right,
it's a game plan. Ooh, and this is not a good turn for Francesco.
Yeah,
he misses the third land drop, and also doesn't have another untapped zombie. Well, at least there's a Dark Salvation, so
that works.
That helps.
Yeah, and a small attack from Francesco Hugoni with the 2 Crypt Breakers. If Henry is on air, then Francesco's still in a decent spot here. But I think I see a Tireless Tracker and a Braid in Henry's hand, so it looks like he's setting up well for the mid-range game plan.
Yeah. When you're facing 2 Crypt Breaker, you typically have to win in the mid game. You probably won't be able to beat double Crypt Breaker in the late game, given that one removal spell is not gonna work. So Henry's game plan is to, well,
draw a land,
attack, and win before the Crypt Breaker card advantage starts running in. So Henry's trying to win within maybe 4 turns or so, whereas Francesco is hoping to stabilize somehow, and then eventually ride his Crypt Breaker advantage to victory. But facing 2 big creatures, that's potentially a 5/5 Longtusk Cub, and maybe on the next turn a 5/4 Tireless Tracker. It's not gonna be easy.
And there's Lord of the Curse, so at least that pumps up the army, gives Francesco a bigger presence on the board.
Yeah, but it will also make his blocks on the next turn difficult, because I could already envision that Henry attacks with 1 or 2 of his creatures, and then has a bunch of mana open, potentially representing something like a Harness Lightning or an Abrade, which could target the Lord of the Accursed. And then Francesco has to make his blocks without knowing Henry indeed has such an interspeed removal spell for the Lord. Maybe Francesco is far enough behind that he just has to risk it. As in say, well, if you have Harness Lightning or Abrade, I don't think I will be able to win the game from this position, so I'm just gonna make a play supposing that you don't have it. But it depends on Francesco's hand.
Yeah. I think Francesco has 1 more Lord of the Cursed and a Liliana's Master in his hand. But he'll get another card this turn with the Crypt Breaker, probably no matter what happens.
Yeah, this is a tough call.
Yeah.
If Henry has nothing, which seems impossible. If Henry had lands, he probably would have played it before combat to trigger the Tireless Tracker. So Henry probably has 3 non-land cards in hand. It could be 3 more creatures.
The only thing I'm sure about is that it spells trouble for Francesco, no matter what the 3 cards are. And there's a block with Dread Wanderer, so I think now that this is going to price Henry in to play. He's going to.
Yeah, so this will signal that there is a removal spell for the Lord coming.
Yeah, there it is. A Braid on the Lord of the Cursed. There you see it. 3 mana 2/3 that pumps all other zombies. In response, still, Francesco is going to draw a card. Lose life. And he draws another land. He's getting closer and closer to that Liliana's Mastery. But the Dread Wanderer now will die.
Yeah, and this does not look good for Francesco.
Right,
Still, his play, not necessarily wrong or anything. He could easily have figured, well, what kind of hands can I still beat from Henry?
Yeah.
And then saying, well, it might be just a bunch of Bristling Hydras and Glory Bringers. That is something I can still beat. If that is the case, I want to be making this block.
Okay. And there's a Swamp for Henry. Not only is that a clue token that immediately puts into play, but I think he has a bunch of other removal. I think it might be a Glory Bringer even. No, okay, it's another Abrade. And I still think he also has a Harness Lightning, but even the Abrade now, killing the Lord of the Accursed. And Francesco cannot even tap his guys to draw a card now, because he would just die to the Longtusk Cub. Just almost on its own.
Which is indeed exactly the reason why Henry is playing this Abrade pre-combat. Oh wait, Francesco can draw a Fatal Push.
Sure.
That might still be an out. Even if he doesn't have it in hand yet, might still be worth trying. No, okay.
He's just like, yeah, might as well try it, because he didn't have to do that. He could have just let it resolve, chump block with on his Crypt Breakers, untap into land Liliana's Mastery that he did have, and try to hold on. But it doesn't get him anywhere long term, of course. We know that.
Yeah. I don't think Liliana's Mastery would have really changed anything against, what was it, like a 6/6 Longtusk Cub and a 6/5 Tireless Tracker. So I might as well say, well, the only way I can still think of myself winning this game is if there is exactly Fatal Push on top, so I'll just play like that.
That's fair.
So now the players can sideboard once again, and things will change a little bit, given that Francesco now gets to be on the play. Looks like he still has all the Kalitas and vehicles in the sideboard, along with the Amity Eternals. No, I want to see those, those crocodiles.
They should be.
Ah,
It's coming back.
They go back. Okay, I'm happy now. Yeah, if I would be in Francesco's spot here, I might cut a couple of removal spells. Just adapt a more aggressive position. Just make sure that your opening hand has a couple of threats, so that it's more likely that you can deploy a fast curve and potentially punish Henry for any mana stumble that might happen.
Yeah, I like that plan. It makes sense. Here you see Amid Eternal, the card we just talked about. The best part about this card is that it's a zombie crocodile demon.
Yep.
Everything else just doesn't matter to me.
And this is the first card with those creature types, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Probably zombie crocodile might already be the first.
yeah. I think
or is it?
There was already a zombie crocodile.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
Of course, of course there has been.
In something like, I think it was like something like Ravnica.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a skeleton just floating through the sewers of Ravnica. I think that might have been a zombie crocodile.
How about a zombie demon?
Yeah, also probably not too many. I'm challenging chat to find out.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up.
You can't help yourself. I suppose I hope we get to see a 7-card hands on both sides, because the mulligan definitely had an impact on what Francesco Hugoni could do.
No, I think it's the first zombie demon.
Okay.
At least I wasn't able to find.
Oh, 2 zombie crocodiles. Oh, I see. Grayscale Gariel. That sounds familiar.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and Mistform Ultimas or any changeling that doesn't count.
And who could forget Dross Crocodile? Yes.
Dross Crocodile.
Dross.
Thank you, Steven, for bringing that up. Oh, Keru Dreadmaw. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't thinking about this, but this is a good one.
It's a nice game when zombie crocodile is apparently a well-supported creature type.
A zombie crocodile
it's
tribal.
It's gonna be my next tribal deck I built. All the zombie crocodiles in Magic.
Yeah, all right. And I'm actually tempted, because Crocodile the Crossing is one of my favorite cards. But let's head on right into the match. We have Francesco Hugoni starting off with a Crypt Breaker, unanswered right away. This is already a good sign, because either a good 2-drop creature or just a simple activation of its ability where it creates a zombie is a great way to start a zombie train rolling. So let's see if Henry has a 2-mana answered. We saw plenty of it, but no red mana. So Servant of the Conduit.
No, that's red mana.
That is red
if it
mana.
lives.
Oh, we'll see soon enough. All right, so there's a discarding Liliana's Mastery. Getting a zombie. Ooh, Dark Salvation. Isn't that the perfect card in this spot? It looks like, yeah, 3 mana. He's thinking maybe playing the Lord, but I think Dark Salvation, being able to have a 2/2 zombie and also kill the Servant of the Conduit, because Henry Channing hasn't shown any red mana, so by doing that he might constrict his opponent from not only ramping but fixing his mana.
Yep. And now Francesco can also activate the Crypt Breaker, so he's pretty far ahead.
Ooh.
Oh, and is it no land?
Oh,
no.
just another blue-green, and it's tapped as well. Francesco Hugoni now firmly in control here. Gets to draw some extra cards with a Crypt Breaker. Also, drew another Dark Salvation. Also has a Metallic Mimic, but I think he's just going to go for Salvation, your other Servant.
Yeah, that seems
Yeah,
pretty
boom.
reasonable. You definitely want to kill the Servant here,
Yeah.
because when you can bottleneck your opponent on 1 color of mana, it's typically worth it. It's not a nice thing to do, but if you want to be winning the game, it's surely smart.
Yeah, and I like the main phase draw. A lot of players forget about the fact that if you haven't played land this turn, your opponent doesn't do anything, doesn't play any creatures. It's a good bet to just use it right away and play land. Look at that, a Lonely Rona's the Indomitable, not doing anything on this board at all.
No, and I think I spot a Glorybringer in Henry's hand, but his mana base is not cooperating, or mana base was rather met by some Dark Salvations.
This is what happens sometimes.
Yeah. So now Francesco has to tread a good line between, on the one hand, drawing cards, and on the other hand, putting up some pressure, because he'll surely know that Henry may have a bunch of red cards in hand, and you don't want to give Henry all the time in the world to find that red mana. Francesco may also have to worry about, say, mounted Radiant Flames on the next turn or the next couple of turns. So he has to balance drawing cards with aggression and not overextending into any sweeper that Henry might have.
So he's gonna start off. Let's see, maybe first the Metallic Mimic.
That's a good one to start with. Better to have that one on the table and then play the other zombies. Yes, Metallic Mimic and then Lord of the Accursed. That seems pretty good to me.
Yeah, it sounds great to me.
Also because then the Lord of the Accursed would be 3/4, so that even if there would be a Radiant Flames, which is this is perhaps even.
This is really bad against the Radiant Flames. I would have preferred to see the Lord of the Accursed, but I don't think there's a red mana source. There's just more green.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if Henry has Radiant Flames in hand at this point, but it would at least be the best thing that his deck could do.
Now there's a Ether Sphere Harvester on the board alongside the Ronas. At least the Ronas can get into the Harvester. Can crew it and block with that. But it just Francesco's board is really big right now. Especially he plays the Lord. He's gonna play double Lord. Get another zombie. Another zombie. Both get counters, and even if a creature blocks and gets lifelink, I imagine it's just a huge bunch of damage. All the 2/2s are 4/4, so it's 12. Diregrass Colossus is a 5-power creature, and there's the handshake. I think it was exactly lethal, even after blocking and activating. The biggest of those
I'm
creatures.
still
it's or at least like you
counting there. May have been one off, but it doesn't really matter at that point.
With the double Lord as well. Like there was no threat of any board wipes coming down, and so I think we're going to have another match. But Francesco Hugoni locks day 2 at 6-0 at least, but I'm sure he's going to be looking at doing even better.
Congratulations to him.
Yeah, we will get to have a look at our good friend Martin Yuza, who's crushing it with Ramin Bread so far, and I see him playing Glorybringer. That's always a good sign. But down to game 3, he must be very happy with the name of his opponent, because in Czech, pivo means beer, and as we know, beer is one of the most popular beverages in the Czech Republic, or rather in Czechia, as we decided to call it, because that's the official name.
Okay. Well, in terms of gameplay, Martin is Martin is surely ahead here. It really doesn't seem fair when the aggro deck has 5 lands and the more mid-range deck has 3 lands, but it is indeed the red deck attacking with the Glorybringers here. And
Martin has a bunch of lands in his hand, I think, which is quite a problem if you want to activate your Seagate Wreckages.
Yeah, that might still take a while then.
Yeah, quite a while indeed. Oh, but he has a Pia. He was actually really happy about this card. He said he didn't like the 1-drops, the Soulscar Mage or the 1/1 Werewolf.
Yeah, the Village Messenger.
Yeah, so
he told me.
So he looks really happy with Pia. He said it's quite good in the mirror match. So
it is. What I did fear a bit about is the curve of his deck getting a bit too high, which can be problematic with Hazoret. That is a reason to play a couple more 1-drops, so that you just spend your early mana more quickly and you can attack with Hazoret 1 turn earlier. But PNLR is certainly still a fine card, even without any artifact synergies.
This is a card that Martin has praised quite a bit. Even though he defeated Andreas Gans in one of the previous rounds, he said that he was very impressed by Woodland Wanderer.
Yep.
Even as a 5/5, even though I say just a 5/5, but he said even as a 5/5, it's really good because it's out of range of Glorybringer and Chandra.
Yeah, and it's one of the best cards when you're in a damage race because of Vigilance. It tramples over lowly 1/1s. Indeed, it evades all the red burn spells. The weakness of Woodland Wanderer is when there are lots of cards like Murder around, or Declaration in Stone, or just efficient
even
1-for-1 spot removal.
Yeah.
But yeah, those types of cards, I don't think they're seeing all that much play. And when many people are playing red burn spells as their removal instead, then Woodland Wanderer is pretty well positioned. So I liked seeing it from Andreas Guns, and it's also good seeing it here from Marco Pivo as well. Looks like lots of Teamer Energy players have adapted to this Woodland Wanderer. And yeah.
Especially if they're playing black. It's I mean, it's obviously easy to activate with already with Servant of the Conduit and Ether Hub, but you know, if they're already running like something like Blooming Marsh or the basic Swamp, it can be fairly easy to see. Okay, there's an Earthshaker Kenra and a pass from Martin User. Tense match here. Martin cannot really attack, but there's a Woodland Wanderer coming in. It has Vigilance and Trample, so
I guess Martin can go for the double block with say a Topter token and the Earthshaker Kenra, then double pump.
I like what you're thinking.
If Marco has nothing, then that will trade and trade quite favorably, because when Earthshaker Kenra dies, that's typically fine.
Yeah. I think I've seen a Braid in Marco's hand. Looks like he's gonna go for it. He also has Long Tusk Cup to follow it up with. Yeah. Now he's gonna say okay, that's fine. So he's now just gonna wait for Martin to pump up his Thopter with the Pia. Yeah. So destroy that artifact.
Yeah, and then trample for 4. All the abilities of Woodland Wanderer are relevant here, not just the size. And I have to give the edge to Marco here.
Yeah, it looks that way.
It looked like Martin was ahead a couple of turns ago, but I think that removal spell for the Glorybringer was perhaps the decisive play that Marco had to make to clinch back the initiative.
Yeah, he's just going to eternalize the Earthshaker Kenra and play another one from his hand. So he's no cards in hand, 8 lands, quite a bit, but he wants to go to town with the Seagate Wreckage if possible. And Marco also looking to seize the initiative on his end. He looks like he was thinking about making a Thopter token, but decided against it.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. All of a sudden, Martin is the control player in the matchup, because that Earthshaker Kenra not big enough to make the Woodland Wanderer unable to block, but Martin does have reasonable blocks of his own. He could double block the Woodland Wanderer with the 4/4 Earthshaker Kenra plus the 2/1 Earthshaker Kenra, which seems fine for him. He can also, if Marco attacks with the other creatures, just eat one of the, let's say, the Servant or the Whirler Virtuoso with his 4/4. So the way the board stands right now, Marco doesn't have great attacks. And if the game goes long, then that Seagate Wreckage from Martin may give him a bit of an edge.
A Servant of the Conduit is attacking as well.
Alright,
so now bait.
Yeah, well, Martin has to figure what does this mean and what do I want to do. He could just take 5 damage from the Woodland Wanderer and then block the Servant with his 4/4 Earthshaker Kenra, eating it for free. Or he could make the double block that I mentioned, the 2 Earthshaker Kenras on the Woodland Wanderer. You don't get to eat a Servant of the Conduit for free, but you do preserve your life total. And he also has to figure, well, does Marco have another instant speed removal spell? Because if you just make the double block on the Woodland Wanderer and Marco has another removal spell, then you're in pretty big trouble.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure Martin can really play around another instant speed removal spell, not at this point. So he may just have to figure that Marco does not have one in hand. My first inclination here would be to preserve my life total, given that I'm playing the control role, but it's a tough call.
Yeah, like my preferred is what he's lining up now. Double block the Woodland Wanderer with the 4/4 and 2/2.
This is even better.
And try to trade with the Servant of the Conduit.
Yeah. Keeping the PR around is useless anyway, because there's no artifact anymore. So it's just a Grizzly Bear with effectively no ability. Yeah. This was definitely better.
All right, so let's see what Martin can draw here. He has the Seagate Wreckage, so if he can manage to play out all his cards, he can get to draw some cards. But he can just eternalize another Earthshaker Kenra, and I think it's exactly what he's doing here.
Mm-hmm. So the Bristling Hydra could potentially become, let's see, 7/6. There are 3 activations.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that a double block will be enough to take it down. Huh. Although Pivo could also just go into the air.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's just
I
going
like that.
slow for now. Draws a 5th land here. Could be important if he has something like a Glorybringer or maybe even Confiscation Coup.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that card around in this matchup. Just a conservative attack, only with the top turn. This is good for Martin, right? He has so many lands, quite a few ways to use some mana.
Mm-hmm.
So if Martin draws a Glorybringer here, he'd be sitting pretty. He's already lining up 5 lands. It's like, okay, I'm gonna draw a card. He's thinking about doing it in the upkeep, right? So because he doesn't have any cards in his upkeep, so he can use it now. It's pretty good. Like if he wants to draw Glorybringer, it's a good way to go about it.
Yeah, also if the top of his deck would be an instant speed removal spell that he doesn't want to play immediately,
Sure.
then he's not priced into doing that.
Yeah, just a bunch of 1-drops in Falconrod Gorger and the Bomat Courier.
Well, if I would be in Pivo's seat, I might make another top turn now, given that Martin has so many like small creatures on the ground. The value of Bristling Hydra and Longtusk Cup is going down, but winning in the air is definitely a valid game plan.
Yeah, I think if I was Marco Pivo, especially now having played another Roller Virtuoso, I would definitely like to do 2 more Thopters so that I have a 4-turn clock.
Yeah, and you still keep 3 energy in the bank to activate Bristling Hydra if need be, I think.
Yeah. But this is also quite interesting that he's attacking with the Longtusk Cup. Of course, he can make it into a 6/6, but he also played out the Roller Virtue, so there's no fear of any removal spells. So again, if Martin uses double blocks, again, something like Earthshaker Kenra and the Falconrod Gorger, for example, like Marco will be forced to use a lot of energy if he wants to kill both. I don't think he necessarily wants to do that.
No, and I think Martin would rather just trade some of his ground creatures for all that energy than to face a big barrage of Thopters.
Yeah, he doesn't particularly care about the Bomat Courier. But blocking that way kind of is a bit problematic, right? Because it means that there's enough energy to make it bigger. Or no?
So the Longtusk Cup
+4/+4
has potentially the ability to become a 6/6, but Martin still has PNLR to pump the Bomat Courier, so he has access to 6 power.
Yeah, and this is good because you see, I forgot that it pumps any artifact creature, and Marco might not realize this as well, so he's going to spend all his energy thinking, okay, maybe it's going to survive, and then Martin's going to pump it up. Thank God we have you here, Frank. That's why you're the expert this weekend.
It's also why Martin put the PNLR in the deck.
Yeah, exactly. It's a sweet interaction, something that's not always that obvious, but I think it's just, I think Marco realizes. Yeah, and he's just going to trade. He's going to keep 3 energy around. But I don't particularly like this, just because like Marco's board is somewhat impressive, but Martin's drawing just a lot of cards every turn. I think he just drew a Raminab Ruins and a Braid.
A Braid could definitely be relevant if Martin can get Marco into a position where he activates the Bristling Hydra, but I'm not sure how to do that.
That's a good draw though from Martin here. For Marco, he draws a Harness Lightning.
Very good.
Yeah. Not only has he generated 1 more energy, he has killed the creature. Suddenly, the Bristling Hydra jumps to life on a clear board. This draw really makes his previous plays that much better in a way. Like he traded quite a bit of his board, but now that he has managed to clear it,
yep,
he can do stuff like this.
Alright. Well, Martin has an Abrade, which he's certainly gonna play this turn. He also needs an empty hand for Seagate Wreckage. You don't want to be playing it on the Bristling Hydra, that makes no sense. You could play it on Whirler Virtuoso to save some life. Martin also had the option of just taking all the damage and then killing the untapped Whirler Virtuoso, trying to win on the next turn or something, but that seems super ambitious.
So it draws another Raminab Ruins and a PNLR, which is fine.
Pia is good.
Yeah.
For sure. With all that mana, he can then activate it twice, so that's essentially 5 power that he adds to the board, spread between a couple of creatures. So now Martin has good blocks again. Mono red control with Seagate
Indeed,
Wreckage.
right? I mean, this Martin is just prolonging the game, but he's using his mana really well, and I think this is why he's really liking this deck. It shouldn't just go long, but Rogue Refiner, good draw for Marco. Adds a creature to board, gets some more energy, potentially some more Thopters, of course. Now again, Marco is not feeling an attack with the Bristling Hydra because he's scared that Martin would be able to find some really good blocks and force into his energy as well.
Yeah, for instance, Martin could block with Falcon Red Gorger and the Topter, and double pump the Topter, and then even with like 2 activations, that's still enough power.
Yep.
Although that might still be a reasonable trade at this point.
Yeah.
Not terrible.
Yeah, now there's a trade with the Thopter token. Not a huge fan of that. But Martin, I like how Martin every upkeep he uses the Seagate Wreckage to draw a card when his hand is empty, and now he has so much mana that he can always play out his threats. There's a Bowman Courier, 4th Raminab Ruins. Seems like his last 3 double draw phases were a small creature and a Raminab Ruins.
That's what the deck is named after.
Yeah, Martin, for him at this point, this Beaumont Courier, it's a chump blocker for a Bristling Hydra. It's just one extra turn.
There's still a Pia.
Of course, it's at least that.
Okay.
Of course, you can pump it. It's great. Ooh, another Bristling Hydra. That Mark is probably gonna be quite happy. Just attacking with the Thopter here.
Maybe an all-out attack, or is that too aggressive?
Ooh, he's a swinging.
So if he attacks with everything, then my first guess is that Bomat Courier is gonna be blocking the Bristling Hydra and get pumped.
Yes.
Falcon Red Gorger on the Rogue Refiner, that seems reasonable. But then you might still have to add another creature to the Bomat Courier if you really want to take down the Hydra. I guess the double block on Whirler Virtuoso is also definitely profitable, but then you take some more damage.
Yeah.
All of the blocks have have some issues.
Yeah.
So that's at least a position where I'm like, well, this all-out attack by Marco is fine. Martin may also have to figure out, well, is there some way where maybe I can just, let's say, chump block the Bristling Hydra, ping Marco at end of turn with the Raminab Ruins, and then draw into something lethal? But that also seems tough.
Yeah. I like this block though because this will force Marco to either try to pump up his Hydra or make some Thopter tokens, which with 4 damage coming through are suddenly very enticing. So pump up the Bowmat Courier to 4 power. So that's a 4/1 Bowmat Courier. So there's a trade there. There's a trade there. This is the thing. Like he wanted to put the creatures away, but he's now realizing, if both of these die, I can only pump up my other Bristling Hydra, and that's probably not as good on this board either.
Yeah,
so he's gonna go for the Topter.
I think I don't want to be pumping the Bristling Hydra or making probably even 2 Topters right now.
I would have made 2 Thopters here because it would be lethal, right? Martin uses down to 4 here after 4 damage coming through. I would have done it. I would have done 1 more.
Unless you're afraid that Martin brought in a sneaky sweeper, Like
Yeah.
Sweltering Suns.
I wouldn't expect him to.
Well,
You know him better than I do. Okay, Glorybringer. That's nice. A land though.
that might be too late.
Yeah.
Or is it?
No, it's not too late.
Let's see, the Glorybringer could just swing in, exert on... Well, it would probably have to be Rogue Refiner. Then you jump block the Bristling Hydra, fall down to 1
Yeah.
from the Topters. That doesn't seem great.
Yeah, he doesn't have to attack.
That's true. Yeah, not attacking with Glorybringer is probably better than attacking and exerting on
Yeah.
Rogue Refiner. Yeah, because then the Glorybringer can also block the tokens. That is definitely the
but
play.
The mark is
Alright.
very much live here. Was there? I think it was some red card, and if it's a red card, it's some removal spell
Or Glorybringer.
or as I said, a removal spell. Yeah, there's a
Okay.
braid for Falcon Red Gorgon, and this should be it.
Yeah, that should be lethal. Because now you can just swing in with everything.
Yeah.
Martin can only block 1 and enough
Yeah.
unblocked damage coming through.
Martin just has a land. He tried to bluff a little bit there, but unfortunately for him, Marco Pivo wins 2-1, and Teamer Energy proving a worthy winner for now. Well, that's it from
Over mono red control.
Mono Red Control. Yeah, so that's it from Live Magic here from Turin, but we'll be back with more Magic soon.